Hey, what's going on guys, Turty here, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for version 1.16. In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering events. So I'm going to be covering two types of events, and that is going to be client events and non-client events. So, what are events? Events are basically something that is fired when a certain thing happens. So for example, there is an event fired when you break a block, and that is the block break event or break block event. I never remember which. And basically you can hook onto those events. That's what we call it anyways. So we hook onto it, and that allows us to do something when that event fires. Now, events are really simple, and they allow for a massive range of things that you can do. You can do so much with events. So I'm going to be just covering these really quickly. So first thing you need to go ahead and do is just create an event package both inside our client and inside our core. Now, if you want, you could have them both inside. So you could just have one inside core, but I prefer to separate my client events from my other events. So I prefer to have a package for each. So I create that with .event and event, and I'm going to go ahead into this event package and create a new class and just call this client events. Now you may also have a package once this loads called mod client events. Since events, there's two buses for events. There is the mod bus and there is the forge bus. Now 95% of the time you want to hook onto, or you want to use the forge bus, since that is where most events are ran. But most events that run before the game actually starts will be mod events. So for example, if we go into our main class and we go down here, we can see we have this setup right here, and this is an event. This is a very simple event, and we're adding it with a listener. So this is the simple way to make an event, and we're just using the common setup event, and this is a mod event. So this runs on the mod bus. So any basically FML event will run on the mod bus. And if we go here, you can see we've added another event. So if we go into our generate ores method, we're using the biome loading event. So this is actually, I believe, on the forge bus. Let's just check this. It should be a forge event. It should say somewhere here. Yeah, this is a forge event anyways, and that runs on the forge bus, and we know that because we're actually using the Minecraft forge.event bus instead of the mod event bus. Now, to add actual events which are not going to, well, you can add two events in two ways. You can do it like we've done here, so you can use bus.addListener or Minecraft forge.event bus.addListener. Those are one way, and the other way is going to be what I'm showing you here. So I'm just going to actually remove this mod client events. I might add it back in the future, I probably will, and I'm just going to create a class in here. I'm going to call this event handler. Okay, now this is client events. So what we first need to do is we need to add an annotation to this class, as we need to tell it this class is an event bus subscriber. It subscribes to the events, or hooks onto them, however you want to say it. So to do that, we can just do @mod.event, and it's not going to pop up because it never does. @mod.eventBusSubscriber, and in here we need to pass in 3 things actually, because this is a client event. So since we need to pass in 3, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to go back to the event handler and I'm going to add that in here as well. Now for the normal event, we just pass in 2 parameters. So the first parameter is our mod ID, and our mod ID is just what we set in our main class. So that is tutorial mod .mod.ID. And then we need to specify the bus that this will subscribe to. So we just want to subscribe to the forge bus. So that will be bus.forge. And you'll need to import bus as well. You can actually remove the @mod part and just keep it as event bus subscriber if you want. That's actually a little cleaner if you do that. There you go. And we just need to do the same here. So we need to say mod ID is equal tutorial mod.mod ID, and bus is once again equal to bus.forge. And obviously if we were using events that were on the mod bus, we would need to say it's bus.mod, and you just need to make sure you do fire an event on the correct bus. And because this is client events, we need to also specify the dist, or the side that this will happen on. So we can say value is equal dist dots, and we have client and dedicated server. We very rarely use dedicated server for anything, but there are a few which we do use that for, but for this we use client because it's a client event. Now I'm going to just cover a normal event for now, and I may cover a client event towards the end. So to actually add to this, we need to add an @subscribe event annotation, and this will go on top of a public static void method. So we can call this method whatever we want, and for this event I'm going to be using I'll use the block break event. So I'll just say on block break, okay, and just import subscribe event. So it's very important that you have these 3 identifiers. So this needs to be public, it needs to be static, and it needs to be void. That is the requirements for an event. The other thing is it must only take in 1 parameter, and that is the event class. So obviously the reason it has to be public and static is so that this event bus subscriber, or the thing that's looping for this event, the thing that is looping from this event bus subscriber will be able to pick it up with the public and static, and void because it just doesn't need to return anything. So yeah, in here we just put the event, and I like to have this final, so we have final events because we don't want this changing. Now this will be a class that uses event, so I'm just going to say event, not event handler, just event, okay, and that is net.minecraftforge.eventbus.api.event. Okay, so obviously that doesn't give us an error because it won't, and if we just hover over this we can choose open implementation, and it should show us every single class, every single event that extends this event class. So as you can see, there are loads of events. There's loads and loads and loads and loads, and we can use all of these, any of these that we wish to use, since they're created for us modders after all. So using the correct event is actually a little bit of a struggle sometimes. For example, knowing whether to use post or pre can be quite hard to figure out. However, for example, if I go into, let's see, let's just go into Anvil update event, it will actually give us some information about that event. If the event has at cancelable, that means you can actually cancel the event, so stop it from running. That's a thing. So the event I'm going to be using, if I hover over this and just let it load, it has a lot of classes that use it, a massive hierarchy. So I'm going to be using, if we see block event, there's a subclass for break event, so that's the one I'm going to be using. Obviously you can use any of these events that you wish, as long as it runs on the Forge bus, and most of these should run on the Forge bus. It will probably say if it doesn't. So here we go, we're going to use the break event and just replace event with break event. I like to just specify that it's a block event, so I do block event dot break event and just import that. Okay, so that is our event. Now everything we use in this method will be from this one event variable, and if we just type event dot, we can see there are tons of different things we can use. So we can get the XP that is meant to drop when we break this block. We can get the player, so this is nullable, I believe. Actually it's not nullable, so, or is it nullable? No, it's not. So that player will never be null, since this only happens when a player breaks the block. There is also the position of the block. There is the state of the block, the world that the block is in. We can set it to be cancelled, so we can cancel it. We can set the XP that it needs to drop. We can, actually that's all we can do, but that is quite a lot. With that we can do tons of different things, mainly because we have the world and we have the player, so that basically allows us to do anything. Once we have a world and a player, we can do whatever we want, basically, as long as it is server side, I believe. So this event should only run server side, I think. We should actually be able to see if we open implementation of this. No, not open implementation. If we control H, we should be able to see where the hook actually is. So on block break event, and this is fired on block break event. If we just check where this is called, we can see Forge adds it right here. Try harvest block is called here. If we trace that back even further, that is called here. If it doesn't mention world anywhere soon, I would assume that means it is that it runs on both sides. Here we go. So this is only called in the server, so that tells us this is only a server side event. So you would have to send a packet if you wanted something to happen on the client. And I will be covering packets in future tutorials. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Just try to do things a little more simpler for now. Okay, so I'm just going to do something very simple, which I'm just going to make up on the spot. So I'm going to say if event dot get block state, since we have the state, it might have just been get, was it get state? It was just get state. So event dot get state dot get block dot equals blocks dots. So we could use a vanilla block if we wanted, or we could use one of our own blocks. So we could say example, or obviously we wouldn't use this for one of our own blocks. We would just have a custom class for that. So this is basically only for vanilla stuff. We don't really want to use this on our own stuff. That doesn't really make any sense since we have custom classes for that stuff. So we would want this to happen when we interact with a vanilla block. Speaking of interactions, there are like right click events for when you like right click a vanilla block. What are you doing? Excuse me. Okay, it seems to be dying. Would you like to not die? It would not like to not die. Okay, that was weird. So here you can see this right click block event. This event is fired on both sides whenever the player right clicks while targeting a block. Blah 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 blah. Right click block with item trigger, right click empty, right click item. There's loads of different things here. I'm just going to go back to the break block event, but obviously you can use that right click block event if you want. So I'm going to say if the block equals Anvil, or you could say if it's instance of, and we could just say Anvil block, for example, instead of checking that it's a specific Anvil. So if a mod adds an Anvil, this would work as well. So if it's instance of an Anvil block, then we could say event.getWorld dot, and then you could do all these different things. So you could do something to the biome, maybe. Event.getPause. Let's see, what could you do to the biome? We actually can't do much to a biome because they are everything is final in a biome. So I don't think there's any setters, which is a shame. What else could we do then? We could say we could add an entity, of course. We could add a particle. If you go to set, you can obviously set a block, and you could loop set a block. So actually I'll show you that really quickly. So we could say for int x is equal 0, x is less than 5, x plus plus. For int y is equal 0, y is less than 5, y plus plus. And we could do the same for z. So for int z is equal 0, z is less than 5, z plus plus. We could do world or event.getWorld dot set block state pos dot there should be, or event.getPos, I mean, of course. Why is it? Why are you doing this? Eclipse is being a little strange, apparently. Event.getPos offset or add, and we could say x, y, z, and then it's the block that we want to set it to. So we could say block init dot, and then one of our blocks, or we could say vanilla blocks. So blocks dot, not block states. What are you doing, Eclipse? You're never like this. You could say a vanilla block. I'm actually going to use one of my blocks. Block init dot custom block dot get default state, dot get, I mean, of course, dot get default state, and you could actually say with a certain property. So you could say custom block dot horizontal facing, and you could say that it will spawn it with a direction let's see, plane horizontal dot random event dot get world dot get random. This is just something I am making up on the spot, and then obviously you have a flag at the end, so this is how it will update, and we can actually use constants here, so constants dot block flags, and we just want a block update. So obviously that's a little big, and I'll just go through this really quickly exactly what's happening here. And if we actually wanted, what it might be worth doing is actually saying like it starts at -5. Okay, so what will this do? This will loop for -5 to 5 on the X, Y and the Z. It will then set a block state at the position of the anvil, plus, and then each of these, until it's done all those loops, and that will be with our block with the default state, but then we are telling it that it is with a particular property. So we're telling it it's with our horizontal facing property, and that is using direction.plane.horizontal, since we only have horizontal facing, and luckily they have a nice little method for us called random, and that just chooses a random a random direction on the horizontal plane with the world's random. So that will basically set it to be a random horizontal facing, and then we are using constants.blockflags.block update, so that will cause a block update. So that's pretty simple. Obviously you could do something else as well, so you could also add entities in these positions if you wanted to. You could have more if checks, so you could also say something like and event.getPlayer dot, let's see, event.getPlayer is child. That's never going to be true, because a player isn't going to be a child, but let's say it was. I mean, what does this actually check in a player? It's just false. Yeah, I don't think that would ever be true. So yeah, if it was an anvil and the player was a child, we could do that. Or we could say, if it was an anvil or the player was a child, just as an example, you could also say else if event.getPlayer dot has item in slot, equipment slot type dot helmet or head, I think it is. So if it had, if they have a helmet, we could do. I mean, we could put this into a method, maybe. So let's actually do that. We can say private static void set blocks. What do we need here? So we need the position. So we need a world block pause Yeah, that's all we need. Oh, we could also pass in a random, so random rand. That will allow us to do event.getWorld, just pause, and then just pass in rand here. Like, that just makes it much simpler for us. So obviously it says that's never used. We can just call it here, so event handler.setBlocks, event.getWorld, event.getPause, event.getWorld.rand. Oh, why isn't it like that? Oh, right, we need to pass in an iWorld, since we don't actually have access to a world. And we could just do the same here if we wanted to. But obviously we wouldn't do that, we would use just an OR statement for that. So in here we could do something else. We could just do, I don't know, event.getWorld add entity. Let's just create an entity here. So I'm just going to create an armor stand entity. Is equal a new armor stand entity. We can say it is entity type dot armor stand. We can pass in the world, of course. So event.getWorld. That probably wants a world, doesn't it? Not an iWorld. And world is instance of world. That will allow us to then cast that, a safe cast. And we could just pass in the armor stand. And then set position to event.getPosition .x .y. Obviously I'm just making this up as I'm going along. Since we're using event.getWorld so much, we might actually want to create that as a variable. So we might want to say iWorld world is equal event.getWorld, and then just use the world instead of that every time. It is better to create a variable if we're using it a lot, and we can do the same for the player, the position. Like right here, we might want to use that for the position as well, since we're using position a lot. So we might go block pause is equal event.getPause, and instead of using event.getPause every time, we might just pass in pause into all of these. For example, of course, you could do that with the state if you wanted to, the player, all of that different things. I think you guys get the point, and obviously you can pass this into a method as well if you want. Let's briefly just cover client events. Client events can be slightly more complicated though, so it's pretty much the same format. Well, it is the same format in terms of the actual event. So it still needs to be a public static void. I'm gonna just do, I think there's a render hand event, so I'm gonna try using that. Render hand event, I'm just making this up as I go along. Obviously, there's tons of different client events. There's like GUI open events, loads of different events. So with this event, we can use buffers. We can modify the item stack. There's a bunch of different things we can do. So we could say event.getMatrixStack.pop. Oh no, we push and then we pop. My bad. Obviously, this is just an example. Obviously, you might not do this specifically. There's like camera events, which I think a lot of people might be interested in using. We might like translate it 0.0f. We might translate it one up, right? I don't know how much that will actually be, so I'm going to say 5 up. Once again, we might want to create this as a variable, since we're using it 3 times. And just pass that into all of these. Obviously, since this is client, we can also access anything in the Minecraft class. So we can also do Minecraft.getInstance and then do any Minecraft stuff in here as well if you wanted to. I mean, what you can do is endless. There's millions of things you could do. Wouldn't want to do that translation. Maybe not translate it, maybe scale it. So obviously 1.0f will be just normal size, so we might just say 1.5. Once again, I'm making this up as I'm going along, and we could do that on a certain condition. So if event.getItemStack .getItem is instance of, and we actually can use our item for this because we have no control over this in our item class, so we can actually use our own item for this. So for example, if it equals our special item .get, of course, then we can do this code, and I'm actually going to just create that outside of this if statement just in case we wanted to use it somewhere else. So this is just an example. So I'm going to go ahead and run both of these, or just run the game, and I'll tell you if it works or not. So let's go ahead and do that. So guys, as you can see, I'm now in the game, and it turns out that using the matrix stack to scale it or translate it or whatever will not work, since this event is actually fired at the wrong time for that matrix stack to take effect. So all I've done is just set the event to be cancelled when I'm holding my item instead, just to be a bit simpler and to get that to work. So let's try this Anvil break event first. As you can see, if I break it, we get a lot of lag because obviously it's breaking a lot of blocks. And yeah, you should see they are all at random rotations, since we used that random plane in a 10 by 10 area right here, or 8 by 8 actually, I suppose it would be, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, of course, because it starts at 0. So yeah, obviously that works. And since we set the hand thingy to be cancelled when we have this item in our hand, we shouldn't be able to see anything relating to our hand, which is true. We cannot see our hand anymore because we have cancelled the event. And I'll just show you that if I don't do this, it will actually show up, which it does. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial. Obviously events are extremely useful, a major part of most good mods. And yeah, I hope you guys do make some interesting things with this new knowledge. So yeah, if you guys did enjoy this tutorial, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button and subscribe. If you really enjoyed, please do be sure to share it. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.